So, Chris, yeah, not too bad. So yeah, no, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
for inviting me.
yeah. So like, obviously, I'm like hosting this podcast now. Well, for the like just for this one. Obviously, what I'm going to be talking about is like more, just like people's like progression in their careers and stuff like that, which is great. Obviously, I know you from like used to teach me at the university, and like you've always been a great like teacher / mentor. I want to say. So yeah, yeah. So
I've been really impressed with what you guys have done.
Thank you.
Since graduating, so you must have done a good job.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. But no, I kind of want to like understand you a bit more and just like introduce, like let you introduce yourself and get yourself out there a little bit with this podcast as well.
So I guess like the one thing that's really useful to me about doing something like this and having this conversation is that I wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
And I'm a different person to a lot of different people.
Mm.
And so, this has happened before where I've had one of my clients meet me in a completely different context as a creative.
Right.
And has just been like, I thought you were a photographer. It's like, well, I also do writing as well.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So I think actually doing this is a really useful way for me to, over a longer period of time, paint a more kind of complete picture of who I am.
Okay,
and the work I do and what I'm about. So I don't know, where should I start, I guess?
I want to say like, it's kind of nice just to do it based on a timeline. So like start from your childhood and then probably growing up. And then obviously I met you during uni. So that's somewhere where I can probably like converse with you a little bit. Absolutely. So yeah.
So I guess like the interesting thing about me is that if you had known what my upbringing was like, and what my education was like, you would never have expected me to end up as a teacher.
Yeah.
So, because I've had a very, very like sketchy, unconventional pathway to that. And I think I have generally in my career as well. And that's a lot of that is to do with the fact I have ADHD.
Right.
I'm neurospicy.
Okay. I love that word, man. Honestly,
like, I've been going to a lot of meetings and workshops about working and being a creative who has ADHD. Yeah. And I love the term neurospicy, like as a descriptor, because I think generally if you use terminology like ADHD or autism or Asperger's or something like that, then people build up a picture in their mind of who you are. Yeah, and that's based a lot of the time not on who you are, but it's based on like cinema or something else they've experienced. Okay. So when you say neurospicy, it's uncertain. Yeah. And that uncertainty then allows them to focus on you.
Okay, that's
and pay attention to you more.
Yeah, because like even like when I was growing up in school, like if you knew someone had like you say ADHD or something like that, like you have a default character before you met them and before you knew them, and then like you're just like, oh, ADHD, so let's give it another feature essentially. Yeah, that's how I used to see it, and how a lot of people in my school used to see it, which I found was like, no, like just think of them as just like a normal person, and they are essentially a normal person, just have a bit more a better character. I'd class it, to be fair.
I think it's like you definitely have certain traits, but they vary to a huge degree. Yeah. And also, if somebody has those traits, but they're a lot less visible or less obvious, you might never know. Like, okay. A lot of your neurospiciness can be internalized. You know? And you do that thing called masking. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely had a huge influence on who I am and how I work and my route through career and education. Yeah. Because we tend to have a very kind of neurotypical framework for how we're meant to navigate the world. Yeah. And if you don't fit in with that, or if it doesn't work for you, then you've got to find another route. You've got to find a way around it. And I think that's what's made me creative as an individual, is that the standard model for this is how you do education, this is how you do university, it just wasn't an option for me.
Of course.
So I had to find my own way through it. And that's because, I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD.
So did you feel like there was a lot of imposter syndrome, like growing up, because you like obviously you were dyslexic and had ADHD as well? Like, do you feel that massively? Yeah.
And it's interesting as well. I always thought that was down to race, because I grew up in Wales.
Yeah,
I was born in Wales. I'm Welsh.
Yeah, Welsh.
Born in Aberystwyth.
Yeah.
Wales, I love Wales. It's an intensely beautiful place.
Yeah, I'd love to go, honestly. Like, I've
so
not even had the chance, and I know it's just a drive away as well. That's the best of it. So,
mate, like some of the most beautiful countryside you'll see anywhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and so I don't sound Welsh because I moved to England. I moved to Northampton when I was about 9 years old, and I lost the accent.
Yeah.
But very much like my formative years were spent in this incredibly beautiful and out in the sticks kind of part of Wales. I grew up in Lampeter. It's a small town. So my ADHD and dyslexia left me out of certain things, and but also our family were literally the only family of colour that I knew of or lived in that area.
Okay.
Like, as a very small child, it's like I thought we were the only ones in the world. It was like that. It's like I remember like visiting my relatives in South Africa one time, just being like, "Whoa, there's others." Yeah, there's a whole country. So there's multiple layers of things that always made me feel like a bit of an outsider.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not to say that I didn't enjoy growing up in Wales. I met some wonderful, beautiful people. My mum as well. Friends that are friends of our family to this day. But yeah, definitely a wee bit on the outside. So in terms of my education there, I think what those multi-layers did is they made it very difficult for me to operate in education at a young age. Yeah. Like I couldn't sit still. I was literally, as
like
a kid, I was
constantly fidgeting and stuff like that. Yeah.
I would put it I was an engine of chaos.
Nice.
I was like just always active, always running around, very loud. Yeah. Polar opposite of what you're meant to be successful in education.
Okay.
And I think as I grew older, like actually it's interesting because it was the 80s. They hadn't invented ADHD yet.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So what they called it was hyperactive something disorder.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that's what I was diagnosed with. And by the way, I only discovered this later on because you get to a certain age and you start to quieten yourself down because you realize that other people don't respond well to your hyperactivity and your boisterous kind of nature. Yeah. So in order to fit in and in order to make friends, you do this thing called masking. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Where you pretend to be normal. Right? Yeah. Pretend to be happy, sat there, really quiet, not moving, not doing anything. And the difficulty with that is that if you're somebody that has ADHD, that takes a lot of effort. It takes a tremendous amount of effort just to sit and be still for a long period of time. Right. So you end up being socially and mentally exhausted, which doesn't make you open to learning.
Okay, yeah.
It makes it very, very challenging for you to learn. And at the same time, you're overstimulated because there's lots of people, there's lots of stuff. It's it's that kind of environment. Yeah. So I was taken out of school at quite a young age, partly because of bullying and partly because I just wasn't doing very well there. So then we also moved around a lot. So I kind of would be somewhere for 6 months or be somewhere for a year. I'd sometimes be in school, sometimes wouldn't be. So I never really learned to deal with that kind of daily, this is what you do. Yeah. And leading into moving to Northampton, I had some bad experiences in my first year of upper school. Okay. I had some great friends. Yeah. And I actually, these weren't experiences of bullying. These were kind of negative experiences with some teachers.
Oh, okay.
Who just again, I was a nuisance. I wasn't cruel or mean or nasty.
Yeah, but most children
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was really a nuisance. I think because also the other thing that I didn't learn is I never learned to respect authority. Yeah. When I was younger.
Okay, I see.
So it'd be a case of you have to do this because I tell you.
Yeah.
This is what we do, and I'd just be like, no.
Not having it, mate. No.
Why should I do that?
Yeah.
Why should I just, And I did this really annoying thing when I was a kid. I would talk to adults like I was an adult.
Right. Okay. I
didn't talk to them like I was a kid. I'd just be like, why do you want me to do that? Not because I was mean, but just because I wasn't ever used to having to respect authority as a default.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting.
And so I had some like disagreements and arguments with some of my tutors, and that led to me feeling very very isolated.
Yeah,
this place isn't for me. I don't belong here. And so I just started skipping school.
Yeah.
Like in year 10 and year 11, I think my attendance was like less than 50% in both years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
okay.
I would not be at school as often as possible. And there was one teacher who got me, or I don't know whether she'd just given up. But I remember she sat me down, and I don't know whether the head of the faculty got her to speak to me because she knew that we had a good rapport.
Okay.
And she sat me down. She was just like, "Where do you go?" And I looked at her and I was like, "I go to the library, I'll read."
Yeah.
Or I go for a walk.
Well, you're still learning, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there was this really arrogant part of me that was like, I was determined to learn because another thing with people with ADHD is they're intensely curious.
Yeah. So hyper focused on a lot of things, aren't they? Yeah.
So I think that sat in a quiet space where I wasn't overstimulated and just choosing the books that I wanted to read and learn about the things that I wanted to learn.
Okay.
That was like a nice space for me.
Yeah.
And I could do that for a bit, and then I could go for a walk.
Yeah.
Or I could go for, I was really into skating then. I could go and skate.
Nice.
And burn off some of that hyperactivity. And a large portion of my last 2 years of school was spent doing that.
Okay.
Know, and then meeting friends when they finished school and hanging out. But then come GCSE time, and I hadn't done any coursework. I hadn't prepared. And I was quite clever. And so I did excel in some areas. But I think I just got to that point where I had a bit of a mental breakdown. Yeah. Because I hadn't prepared and I had lots of anxiety about it. Because as well, education, every family has a thing that they respect every family has a thing that they respect above all other things.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
In my family, I think it was education.
Yeah.
And nice. The problem with that is that I had completely set myself up to fail.
Yeah.
So it came to GCSE time, and I took my exams, some of them, at least the ones I was still on. Yeah. And I passed 2 of my GCSEs.
Oh, okay.
Which were English Lit and English Lang.
Yeah.
Because I love reading.
Yeah, of course.
Books.
Yeah.
And also because I had a really nice English teacher.
Yeah.
That was the teacher that...
I always feel like having the right teacher always... Because I wanted to do I went into food tech and I wanted to become a chef as well. But then I also went into computer science, but then I had a really shit IT teacher.
Right.
But he only taught us once a week, and then I had another one who I really liked. But then I always just felt like, oh, no, you're just making my dreams not come true with this job, so I'm not going to do it. And then food tech, I realized that I wouldn't have a social life with it. I realized that from my dad as well. But it's quite interesting because and also just hearing about your experience in school as well. I think our lives are a bit opposite in that sense. So I was very I stuck by the rules, and it had to be the rules, and my attendance was always high, but that was because I was my mum and dad always tried I'm gonna I would never got to get told off by my mum and dad because they scared the shit out of me. Yeah. I love my mum and dad as much as possible, but they scared the shit out of me if I did something wrong. And I think that was quite interesting. But like you say, even from a mixed race point of view as well, obviously I'm quarter Italian, people would notice my surname as soon as it came up on the register. Yeah. And even I still think with teachers as well, they kind of noticed, not the sense of bullying, but it was almost they kind of spoke to me a little bit differently because of my mixed race as well. And I kind of just stayed quiet, and I was just that quiet kid in the corner, just kind of wanted to learn. But I found it kind of like yourself, hard to learn and stuff. Yeah. But then I always wanted to get the GCSEs and achieve a little bit more. So, but it's quite interesting.
I think I definitely wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was intensely curious.
Yeah.
But I just struggled learning in that environment. Ultimately, and then it's as well. Creativity is my thing. Now I love art. I love creating. Yeah. I got an F in art at GCSE.
Nice.
And it's because I had the wrong teacher. and you know, not to go into it, they were very young, I think, and I'm not sure they kind of knew how to manage someone like me.
Right.
But yeah, I got a really, really terrible grade in art, which is the one thing that I'm now is my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and also the same, like coming from a creative point of view, like I never thought I'd like go into photography or like do, because I did study art and then I did photography for like sixth form. But I had a really good like photography teacher, and I absolutely admire her and I love her to bits. And I think also like, because I wasn't essentially going to go to uni to do photography, so I was supposed to go to Nottingham Trent, ended up pulling out, and I took a gap year, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go. I had like problems. My nan was in hospital at the time and stuff, and then I was like, no, my nan was like, you got to go to uni. I was like, fine. So I just went to, I like built up the courage, went to uni, and then obviously I met you and all that lot. And I think like meeting like the likes of you, Eugene, and like all the other lecturers, I think I found like my like little home and the career that I wanted to build in that sense. And I thank you for it, because now I've started all of this, and it's awesome. Like,
honestly, I can't begin to tell you how happy I am for both of you guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
As well, it's like, this is exactly what I would have dreamt of starting.
Finishing
uni. Like, this is exactly what I would have been like, you know. And if me and Eugene contributed to inspiring that makes me incredibly happy.
Absolutely, and like me and Joe always say, like we always want to help you guys out if you ever get like in the rut or whatever. You know what I mean?
Us.
Oh mate, do you know what I mean? That would be the dream team of everything. Like I love that, honestly. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but but I even that, like, because obviously you went to the same university as me as well. So like eventually, yeah. So like, how did you find that? Because obviously you said like from school and stuff.
I've kind of given you part one.
Yeah.
The educational odyssey and fuck up. It gets worse.
Nice.
I left school like 2 GCSEs, feeling really down about myself. Like my self-esteem and my anxiety were all over the shop, you know. But I knew that I liked doing creative stuff. And one course that I had a look at that was at Booth Lane College, that was a fit, was graphic design.
Right.
And I had a chat with them, and I think like, I don't know if I had the minimum requirements to get on the GMBQ, but I think I had a chat with them, and my sister, who's a really, really talented artist, she gave me some advice on talking to them, and how to get in. So, and I think also it was, you know, it was a GMBQ, so it was basically the same level as GCSEs that would then prepare you to do your BTEC.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-year course, I think, which I got through about the first 2/3 of.
Yeah.
Before you know, I started hanging out with some naughty people.
Nice.
Because they were fun.
Yeah. But the thing is, you're like, I feel like you always drive yourself to like the most interesting people, because you get some interesting stories out of it. So
and like definitely like people who are a bit more rebellious, they tend to be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I got into a little bit of trouble. I won't go into too much detail, but it got me excluded.
Nice.
And then I had to go home. Not only had I messed up my GCSEs really badly, I got part way through the first year of a course, and I had to go home and tell my mum that I'd failed again. I disappointed her again, and that was heavy for me. You know, I really felt bad, because also the reason I got kicked out, it was totally on me. It was a stupid mistake. It was my own fault, and there's no way around it. You know, but then, right, she basically, I think, just said, look, that's it. You're on your own. You're at an age where you can get a job.
Yeah.
You got to get a job. You got to work. I can't afford to pay for you.
Right.
So off you go.
Yeah.
And I got really, really lucky. I went to an IT certification college that was like an agency.
Oh, okay.
To get like my basic IT certification. I love computers. So I was like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And they eventually, what they do is they train you in your basic sort of office skills, essentially, and then they help you do a CV and they send you out to apply for jobs. I got a job at the Chronicle and Echo. Yeah. And basically my job was to I get in the morning. There was an inbox that had a whole load of emails from different departments, from customers, from different people, and it was essentially all of the artwork for the adverts would be sent to this inbox. Right, so I would open the JPEG, I would convert it to an EPS and add it to the system, and then I would close it. And I would do that every day, all day.
It's just like, it's such a mind-numbing thing to do, just like,
So I was working for the Chronicle and Echo, I was basically the kid that would open an email, save the image. Open an email, save the image. I did that for 2 years.
Oh my God.
Right, and this is one of those little bits of luck that that come across every so often. The first thing is I was around people that understood how to use InDesign, it was Quark Express at the time, and Photoshop.
Right.
So were typesetters, graphic designers, those sort of people. So I could ask them questions and learn from them. And they, to this day, some of the people that in that place, because I was like 17 when I started there.
Right, yeah.
And so they kind of took me under their wing and looked after me and taught me a lot of stuff about the old school print industry, basically, and old school sort of design. And I got so good at saving images from emails. I was really, really quick, really fast at it. I'd be done pretty much in the first like 3 or 4 hours of being there. Okay. So then I had half a day and a copy of Photoshop and a copy of Quark Express. And that's when I got really into design.
Okay.
I basically started doing the work of a graphic designer for them on the salary of somebody that was saving emails. And to cut a long story short, I did that for a couple of years before they gave me a job as a typesetter, graphic designer. And I started just doing that all day.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So like, it was like, even though you were getting paid shit, you were like, you still built up the skills, and then obviously they put you on further, that's great. See, like my experience in terms of the workforce was like, my dad wanted me to like work. Like I was the first one to work at the age of 13, and then like, it's just a paper round, and I worked like behind bars. But then like, I think the lesson I learned from that was that, because I was a very shy kid as well, like I learned how to like get myself like in environments where I had to be social and stuff. And then obviously like, as like years went on and stuff like that, obviously I went to uni, and I want to say I was mid-social. Like I remember meeting Joe, and he was a very like stump kind of guy, and like trying to open up to him, and now he's like the most talkative person you'd ever meet. It's kind of great. But then like, I think my dad also kind of made me realize that like, it's shit working for people, and it's nice to work for yourself. So like, hence why we started the studio and stuff. And I think like, that's kind of like my like little like injection to how I got the studio, and like wanted to, because essentially we were talking about, and we could have got London jobs, and we could have been retouchers or something like that. It wasn't worth the commute or staying in London. So we're just like, why don't we just build something here? So
I think it's all of the reasons I didn't fit in at school. It's the same reasons that I didn't fit in at work. I did well there actually. But I think it's because I had that option of like, I did half a day of the boring job, and then I could just experiment and play. And that was really lucky. Like, so, very, very fortunate. So
do you feel like, from like, because obviously you got ADHD, do you feel like your childhood growing up with ADHD has changed to like your adulthood, like in terms of like your mindset and the way you are with people and stuff like that? Or do you feel like you're still the same child, but like people kind of understood you a bit more? My masking went deep. Right? To the point where I felt like the person I was inside was something that I wasn't. And that actually who I was trying to present myself as was the real me. And believe it or not, like for that period of time, right, when I was working at the Cron, and I was doing graphic design. I got my first camera at that point. Nice. Fell in love with it. I was very serious. Like I was a very serious person, very angry, and I wanted to be taken seriously. Right? Because in my childhood, I'd been this sort of happy-go-lucky, silly wild thing, right? And that child, that silly kind of wild, carefree version of me, was ridiculed and taken advantage of and bullied and hated by a lot of people. Absolutely, yeah. So I learned to hide that aspect of myself in order to be taken seriously, because if I could be taken seriously, then I'd be safe. Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So it shaped that period of who I was from the age of about 17 to, let's say, my early 30s, definitely, before I went to therapy.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
So, yeah, is the answer. In positive ways, but also in negative ways.
Yeah.
So I guess after I'd had a bit of experience as a photographer, as a graphic designer, I was getting good at it because I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, it was the first time in my life where I was like, I might be good at something. Like, I've found the thing that I could be good at.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially photography. I got my first camera. My brother actually lent me the money to get my first camera.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the day it arrived. I was hungover. We'd been out the night before. And he collected the parcel and just dropped it on my chest box. And I was just like, oh, shit. And he went, here you go. But I took that camera out and I started taking pictures, and I just went on a mission. Like, I was taking pictures for like 5 years.
Okay.
I never did a single job.
Yeah.
I just always had my camera.
Yeah.
And I was always taking pictures.
Well, like, just anything, like just like gigs and stuff like that.
Landscape.
Okay.
I was really interested in exploring spaces. You know.
Okay.
And, you know, when you walk through a familiar space, and there are certain details that kind of bury themselves into your memory.
Yeah.
Right? And they seem innocuous, but they're often kind of symbols of how you feel in that space.
Yeah.
What's important. Like, a really good example is the house that we grew up, or the house that we lived in for quite a long time. There was a banister on it. And I took a picture of that banister, and it's one of my favourite pictures that I've ever taken. Because the paint is all worn off.
Okay.
To the wood, to the varnish. And to me, just that on its own symbolises the years and years and years of people walking past, rubbing their hands on it, wearing the paint off.
Right.
That's years of experience of my family interacting with that space.
Okay, that's so interesting.
It's a small little detail.
Yeah.
But to me, it means my family.
Yeah. So
I'm interested in that.
Yeah. See, I think that's quite interesting, and also, like, I think I've literally just found my photo that I'm, like, really proud of. I went back to Italy last year for my cousin's wedding, and, like, so my granddad and my nana passed away, and we have this house in Italy, and I was like, oh, it's such a small dinky house, and I'm like, I'd love to take a photo of the inside of it. And I haven't, like, put it out to anyone yet. I haven't shown anyone because I just feel like it's mine, and I need it. And I was like, it's my favorite photo of all time, and I'm just like, I'm not showing this to anyone whatsoever because it's so great.
It's too precious.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was like I could have just, like, had a camera as a kid and taken a picture of it, but then I'm like, no, I've waited all this time to get this photo, and I knew what photo I needed to take because it's a core memory, and I was like, no.
So sometimes you're led by instinct.
Yeah.
And I think for the first 5 years, the only thing I produced was a project for uni when I was at Salford, and it was called It's All Still for Nothing and It's All Still for Free.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was those first 5 years condensed into a little book. But I haven't put out like 90% of those images.
Yeah.
They're all set on a hard drive. Like 2 hard drives.
The thing is, I feel like that's how it should be with photographers most of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got to collect everything and then let it stew and then come back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was obsessed. Like, I always had my camera. I was always taking pictures. So when I developed some skill, I thought, okay, I'm gonna apply to go to uni.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm gonna go in as an adult learner, which means I don't need to have the minimum requirements.
Okay.
I can potentially get in just on a portfolio.
Yeah.
Right. And I was good. I was getting pretty arrogant about it. I was, I can do this. And I spent like 6 months crafting this portfolio, man. Really beautiful images. I had a CD that I'd made, and I custom made a CD. It was in a flight case. Kind of folded out, and there was interesting documents and stuff like that. It was amazing. I was really, really happy with it. Like 6 months of like hard graft. Yeah. And making artwork and putting it together. Yeah. I took it to Salford Uni to interview, right? And this guy, he just tore me to shreds. He completely tore me to shreds. But the heartbreaking thing is that, what I said before, I'd never really tried at anything before.
Right, yeah.
I'd never tried to be successful academically. This I really tried.
Yeah, no, of course.
Everything into it.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Like, I got laughed out of the place. Like, the guy literally laughed.
Yeah.
He said to me, you know, so no BTEC, no nothing, no qualifications. And I was like,
wow.
No, just the portfolio. And he laughed at me.
Jesus.
Yeah. He was actually, I think, a bit of a dick.
Yeah, there you go.
But more on that later. So a couple of things happened to me then. Mm-hmm. One, I was completely crushed. I remember getting the train back home and feeling the lowest I'd ever felt in my life. Yeah. And also, I was furious. Mm-hmm. I was incredibly angry because I knew I was good enough.
Yeah, of course.
I knew that I had the drive and I had the will and I had the talent to be there.
Yeah.
And it was because I didn't have the right bits of paper
that
I was laughed at. So I came back to Northampton College, right? And I spoke to the head of department and said, I'm really sorry.
I'm really sorry.
I'm a different person now.
Please.
Please, can I come and can I do a BTEC? I told them what had happened. I said I went for this interview, I was laughed at, I was made a fool of. I want to come here and I want to prove them wrong. Yeah. And I had a mission. I had an absolute mission. And there's nothing like a bit of anger to sometimes fuel that fire.
Yeah, exactly. Would you class that as like avenging yourself or revenge essentially? Because like essentially you're trying to like get back at them somehow.
I think there's a bit of me, and this all connects to my upbringing and my neurospiciness.
Yeah.
That when somebody tells me what I am or tells me that I can't do something, I immediately respond with, I can.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Of course.
Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it gets you into trouble.
Yeah, you become like the Jim Carrey yes man. Yeah, I mean, you just like
you can be manipulated. By that very easily.
Absolutely,
you've got to watch out for that.
Yeah.
But in this case, like, I think this guy was just being a bit of a dick, and I wanted to prove him wrong. And it became very personal, but also it was that personal element, but also tied into the fact that I genuinely loved doing graphic design, and I genuinely loved photography.
Yeah.
So it was a positive way for me to respond and to channel that frustration and that anger into something. So I went back to the college. They accepted me straight onto a BTEC, no qualifications. I was there for 2 years. I got a distinction.
Nice.
And then I went back to Salford University, interviewed again, and I got in.
Yeah,
this time.
Nice.
It was a different person that interviewed me, which kind of disappointed me a little bit.
You wanted it to be the same person?
I wanted it to be the same person.
Just like, it's like I told you I'd get that distinction, mate.
Which was amazing. It was incredible. It was a dream come true. Yeah. Because I think like Salford was, I don't know whether it was ranked like in the top 5 in the country for graphic design. So very well respected.
Right. Yeah.
They had multiple D&AD awards every year.
Yeah.
Like it was for art and design. It was very successful.
Yeah.
Great facilities and that sort of thing. But then a terrible thing happened that happens to people sometimes is that all of my dreams came true. Right?
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
All of my dreams came true.
The big oof.
Yeah. And I got up to Manchester, I got up to Salford, and it was amazing. It was brilliant. The course was interesting, and I met some great people. But I think I'd put so much weight on reaching that goal, getting that success, and when I got there, it just wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what I wanted or what I expected. I had unrealistic expectations of what university life would be.
Okay.
And unrealistic expectations of myself as well. And it's partly due to the fact that the teachers there, they were all very, very gifted people in their field, but they weren't very nurturing teachers.
I see.
In a sense. And the faculty at Northampton Uni, when I studied there, were far better teachers.
Okay.
Far more understanding of how to communicate the things that they knew.
Yeah.
But Salford was way more prestigious in that regard. But I know which one I value more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's someone that has the ability to teach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a disappointment, and I think I spiraled into some extreme kind of anxiety and depression. Yeah. That was when I was diagnosed with I don't know what they call it, anxiety disorder, something. Okay. But I was at the point where I couldn't leave the house. I was having a panic attack every day, constantly throughout the day.
Yeah.
And, it was the lowest point in my mental health that I'd ever experienced.
Yeah.
It was rough. And I think what I learned from that in the end is, strangely, everything can go wrong for you, right? And you can feel terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. At your lowest point. But also everything can go exactly as you want it to.
Yeah.
And you can still end up in that lowest point.
Yeah.
But both times, the mistake I made was I was putting too much weight and too much value on an individual isolated experience rather than just enjoying the process as a whole.
Absolutely.
And having unrealistic expectations. And that's what really done me over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like reading a book, and obviously there's a climax to the book, but you can't always stay at the climax.
Yeah.
You have to come down at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that's quite interesting. And that's how I felt with the studio. And I was like, yeah, like I'm at my climax point at the moment, which like everything's going well. I'm ready for something really shit to happen. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, fuck, what's going to fuck me over? Like, I don't know. But even like me and Joe, like we have got, and I'm grateful to have Joe by my side with the studio, because there's times where I even question our decisions for like the studio and what we do. And I'm like, whether or not someone wants to like take it on, or like maybe buy the business or something like that, like just small little things. And I'm just like, would it benefit this? But then I'm like, also, I look at that wall I've got there, and I'm like, I built like
that is a thing of beauty.
Well, it's almost like that's our like business model there. That's how I see it. Yeah. And all them people that come by the studio and like, just like, they find their community somehow, and like they're so like inspired by what's going on, and it's essentially their second home. And that's what I kind of wanted to create, and what both me and Joe wanted to create with the studio. Yeah. And
you're absolutely smashing it, and like having that up there is definitely a clear indicator that you achieved that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But no.
It is, the thing I like about that is that it's symbolic of a very huge community and a big experience.
Yeah.
Something that's going to continue.
Yeah.
And develop.
Absolutely. Yeah. But no, it's great. But yeah, and like you say, like, and also coming from like when we started the studio, because we came from like a creative background anyway, and we're not very corporate-y kind of guys, but we do the corporate jobs on the side. It's like, it's interesting because we've managed to somehow do this half and half, and they say, no, you can only go corporate, and you can either just be really creative, and that's it. And I was like, okay. So we kind of like wanted to prove, like you say, to prove someone wrong. Yeah, and we kind of did that.
Do it our way.
Yeah, we did it our way. We're like, no, fuck it. Yeah. I'm going to be really creative and show off all this creative stuff that we're doing, but also do like the background stuff or the corporate stuff that none of these people see. Yeah. And like, that's kind of like where I love what I love about mine and Joe's like teamwork, and how we like manage the studio really well. So, but like you say, like you come from like you worked at Amplitude, and that was like a corporate content creating like background as well. So
that happened that happened at the same time as me doing my degree in Northampton.
Yeah, right.
So this how that came about. So the course I was on was HND. Right.
Yeah.
I barely scraped a pass. Like I got like the bare minimum to pass to get my qualification.
Absolutely.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Right. Because as I said, my mental health took a nosedive. And here's the really awful bit as well, right? And I was promised a top-up place on their BA photography.
Oh, okay.
Multi-award winning course.
Yeah.
Right. Promised a place. This is the second awful thing that happened. So I went off sick. I got a doctor's note. They said, we're putting him on this medication. He needs time away from the course. Yeah. To recover. It took them 6 months to confirm whether a late submission of mine would mean that I passed the course, or if I was kicked off. All right. Literally 6 months. And a committee of people.
Wow, Jesus.
To make that decision. I had a doctor's note that covered the entire date as well. Yeah. I actually submitted the work, but I submitted it via email rather than in person.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that went down as a non-submission. But that wasn't my fault. It was like my tutor said that they would handle it.
Yeah.
It was their first year of teaching and something went wrong. I don't know. But it ended up that they had to go through this committee and they had to look at it. So on top of this mental breakdown I was having, I then I was told I've got to wait 6 months before I'd find out if I was going to pass the course or not. And if I was going to be allowed to submit my work posthumously, like a resit. You know?
Yeah, of course. That must have been like the worst 6 months of your entire life.
So rough.
I can imagine. Like,
it was so rough. I drank a lot.
Yeah.
Standard, isn't it? It was insanely stressful. So that point where I was meant to be recovering, I couldn't recover because I was constantly worrying about this. And I just wasted that opportunity that I'd been waiting for my whole life. You know, had I messed up that badly? And of course, who was on the committee? That the head of the photography course that I'd had a meeting with and who had looked at my work and said, yeah, we've definitely got a place for you. Yeah. He then turned around and said no. Because of, essentially because of poor mental health.
Yeah.
Right. So I passed the course. I got through. They accepted it. It was fine. But it certainly wasn't a positive experience for me at all. Then I still had the opportunity to do a top-up. And I decided, like, look, I'm going to come back to the place where I fell in love with photography. I'm going to do my work here, my projects here, and do it in Northampton and study at Northampton Uni. And honestly, when I first started learning or first started the course, it was like night and day. Just the level of care and how nurturing they were. I mean, you know Tracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tracy was
we all love Tracy. Tracy's like the top G.
Yeah.
Like
Eugene was one of my tutors as well. And in terms of like just their ability to teach, and also, I mean, Eugene is his career and his knowledge base.
Yeah, I was always like inspired by yourself as well, but like always like inspired by Eugene, like coming from like him going on a cruise ship doing photography and then working and like becoming an assistant, and from like where he is now,
working his way up.
Honestly, like
charming his way to the top.
Honestly, he's like got the gift of the gab, and he's he's one of them.
He's
so
brilliant. So I went from this very like prestigious university where I had a terrible time to one that was less prestigious in terms of the ranking. I had an amazing time. I loved it.
Good.
And that was when I did the best work of my entire career.
Yeah.
It was my final year, my final project. It was also when I met Joe and I started doing commercial work as well. So Joe was a DJ.
Nice.
And and she's still a DJ, Madame Electrofee.
Go on.
And we met because I covered one of the gigs that she put on. At the Bradwell, the Charles Bradwell.
Yeah.
And it was a big night, like a really big night. Loads of people there, lots of decor, everyone was fancy dressed. It was really cool. Yeah. And so I did photography for that night, delivered the images, sent them over, and then she gave me a phone call and was like, can you come over for a chat? So I went to her house and she kind of looked at me and said, have you ever done fashion? I went, yeah, of course. I've never done fashion.
It's like yes man mentality,
yeah,
innit?
Do you think you could do a fashion shoot in a studio? Oh yeah, absolutely. I've never shot in a studio before. But I understood how light worked. Yeah. And I understood composition, and I was good at retouching. And I kind of figured that the rest would just be simple, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Jo invested some money into opening a studio, and she got me in to help her produce a portfolio. Right. We had 3 days, and we worked like long hours. And we had, I don't know how many models we had in, like a ridiculous number. Yeah. And we just get them in an outfit, put them in there, shoot, lighting. Yeah. And we'd refresh the lighting each time. And we produced a portfolio. Jo took that to London, to trade shows, fashion houses, etc. And we started a business based on that. And that was the beginning of my kind of corporate work, and happening alongside me finishing my BA at Northampton. So another thing that happened, again, this yes man mentality, is the head of the course that I was on, Cartini. She asked me to do like a piece to camera about my work. I think some of the students have been picked to do a piece to camera, and I don't know whether it was going on the website or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah, sure, okay. Yeah. Turned up on the day, and she was like, have you got any notes or got a script you're going to read from? And I was like, no, I'm just going to talk about it.
Just wing it.
And the cartoon was just, oh, for fuck's sake. I could see her like this is going to be long.
Yeah. She's just like, oh, no.
Another one, I haven't prepared anything. But it was work that I'd been immersed in for nearly a year, and I was really passionate about. And because of my dyslexia, I've never been good at reading from a script. I'm terrible at it. Mm-hmm. So I've just got used to being just talking. I can talk shit all day.
It's perfect. Honestly, it's a good trait to have.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's useful as it turns out. Yeah. So I did it, one take, spoke about my work, nailed it, it was done. Yeah. And a few weeks after that, Cartini called me in the office and said, have you ever considered doing some teaching? Similarly to how you guys have. Yeah. And I was like, Cartini, it's the reason that I did this degree. Essentially, I want to do the work that you do. Yeah. I had not thought about teaching before that moment. But essentially, Cartini was offering me an opportunity. Yeah. He was offering me a chance to do a bit of teaching, just a couple of sessions here and there. Yeah. To see whether it would suit me. Yeah. Now, you got to remember, like, mentally where I was at. I had really, really terrible social anxiety. I was terrified of talking in front of people. Yeah. Right? But I knew this was a great opportunity. I knew this was a chance, and she was giving me a chance, and I had to take advantage of it. I had to just go, yes. So again, I'm one of those people that just says yes, and then figures it out later. Yeah. But yeah, I can't believe what was coming out of my mouth. I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I really, really hope that there's a chance that she gets to see this.
No, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But it turns out that it went really well.
Good.
And I took to it. I spent like the first few months just being incredibly nervous and anxious, like not sleeping and terrified because not only did I have to talk in front of people, but I think it was like 2-hour sessions. I had to fill 4 hours. Like,
wow, Jesus.
I've still got that first spreadsheet that I did. I managed to cover about half of it.
Nice.
Because I way over prepared. I prepared way too much content. Yeah. And you know how these things go.
Yeah, of course.
And and then eventually, they asked me to do a couple more and then come back the next year until at one point I was teaching across 4 different modules. Yeah. As an AL. And so it kind of just built year on year. Yeah. Eventually had to quieten it down a little bit because I wanted to do more freelance stuff with Joe and with Amplitude. And that kind of takes me up to where we met.
Yeah.
At university.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously I met you in third year, but I met you like a bit in second. Like I kind of got to know you and Eugene a little bit more than most of the students, which was great. And hitting on third year, like obviously we did the advertising course, which was module, which was great. But yeah, and obviously we're here today talking. But like even like you said, like with teaching and stuff, like we do it here at the studio. Like obviously I've got one of the work experience kids here at the moment, like, and he's done well, like since. And I always think of like you and Eugene when I'm like teaching as well. Like I say, oh, what would like Chris say in this situation? Like obviously like I'm very vocal in the way I talk and stuff, and like sometimes I slip up and say the wrong thing, but no, like, and every like work experience kid I've had like turn up, they've always like been amazed by the studio, and I've always been like grateful for like the help that they've progressed and stuff. Like I've got like Ethan in the background at the moment, and he's like, obviously I just went to Lake Como with him, and like that was great. And you like you say, you feel like a proud dad moment. Like you feel like you feel so proud of them and stuff like that, and it's great. But yeah, even like teaching myself, I would love to go into it, but I think with the studio and the time I've got here, and it just takes so much out of it. And I can imagine like with Amplitude as well, because obviously you only worked at the uni 1 day a week, was that right? So
it changed quite a bit. At first it was 1 day, and then it was 2, and at one point it was 3.
Yeah.
So there were times when I was juggling quite a lot between them. 1 day a week's perfect for me though. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, because it's nice, because even when I was at uni, there was like the odd
I think it was especially your course as well. There was like, because you had the fashion marketing department, and obviously I knew nothing about photography. So I was like, oh, do you know what? Let's like test out my skills and see how much I can help these people. So I'd like help them out like during like the module and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I think I'll go good knack for this. So then obviously I kind of like used that skill set and pushed it onto the studio a little bit more when I had like kids come in, do work experience and stuff. And I'd like to think they've become the best photographers and videographers going so far, and like they're progressing as they keep going. Like Ethan is like a prime example of it, and he's done really well. So, but yeah,
one of the ways that you learn best I've found is when you have to scrutinize what you do to such a level that you've got to explain it to somebody else.
Yeah,
you don't really understand something until you can explain it to somebody else.
Yeah,
it's a whole nother layer of knowledge. You know? But very useful. The reason I mean, I teach because I love it.
Yeah, of course.
Now that I've gotten over the anxiety around it, like I've got a session tomorrow, and I'm not worried at all. I'm at that point now where I can do it.
You know what you're
doing. Which is, it's like I'm a different human being.
Yeah.
Compared to how I felt back then. But yeah, that ability to pick something apart and to understand it at that level is really important. And that's one of the reasons why I teach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it trains you to be, you know, if you're gonna tell a whole room of people something, you've got to be absolutely certain it's true. Yeah,
and like I feel like inspiration is key as well. Like you've got to inspire these kids in order for them to want to do the. Because like I always find like, especially in the photography course, like you got a lot of people that join and they just think, oh yeah, it's just taking pictures, and then it's like, no, this is like, it's so much deeper than that. It's like looking into the masters of photography and how they progressed and like stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what I got inspired by as well, was that we had like lecturers like yourself and like Tracy and all that lot that knew like great photographers and like could like gel that knowledge onto us. And I thought it was perfect.
There's a couple of things that I check in on myself with when I'm teaching or when I'm looking at my content.
Yeah.
The first is, am I excited by this?
Yeah.
Do I find this interesting?
Yeah.
Do I think it has value?
Yeah.
And secondly, you know, never ever tell them something that you have absolute conviction of. Yeah. Right? Because if you're kind of half-assed about it, you're not really certain, it's going to come through in the way you speak about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be giving off that body language. You have no control, especially someone like me. I have no control over that. You know,
yeah, but the thing is, it has an effect, doesn't it? Like massively, like your whole body language to like.
Yeah.
If you're teaching someone something.
Sorry.
No. Like I was just going to say, if you're teaching something like that's really boring and like out of like something you just don't want to talk about, and you're just like, oh fuck, okay. Cool, that's great. I've spoke about that. Do what you want with it. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, they're going to see it as that mentality. It's like, oh, that wasn't important then. Yeah. So, but yeah. No,
if you're passionate and you have conviction about what you're saying, then it's infectious. Other people get into it as well, and they get passionate about it as well. And so I think the day that I don't find teaching a little bit terrifying and I don't find it interesting anymore, that's the day that I'll stop doing it. Yeah. But it's been 10 years now, and that hasn't come. So.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Much, yeah. And like, me and Eugene are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. No, so it's 9 years.
Yeah.
It will be 10 years.
Wow.
In the next term.
Go on.
Yeah. I said to Eugene, I was like, should we do something?
Yeah.
Should we like go and have a drink?
Yeah, have a piss up with Eugene. Yeah, I think that sounds great.
I might take him out for dinner.
Go on, nice.
Honestly, I couldn't as well. Just to shout out to him, I couldn't have wished for somebody better to work with.
Yeah.
He's been excellent. And he's also really good in the ways that I'm not so good.
Yeah.
As well. Like he's super organised. Yeah. Super on it. And we complement each other really well.
Yeah.
I don't think I do anything for him particularly.
No.
But he sorts me out.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
But no, like you said, like even Eugene, like yourself and Eugene, like when he didn't have to give us the lighting kit he gave us when we first started. Do you know what I mean? And like the fact that he was very willing to help out and stuff is like, I'm over the moon. I'd love to do that for the next person I like wants to do what we're doing and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, it's great. But yeah, like So moving on, obviously you had Amplitude and you worked on that, and that was great.
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey.
Working with Amplitude. I think, like, so I've always had creative projects that I've been working on privately.
Yeah.
But like we said before, they're almost too precious.
Yeah.
Like, one in particular did turn into something. We might talk about that briefly. But yeah, the main bulk of my time was spent working with Amplitude. And always as a freelancer, as a contractor over the years, but taking the role of kind of a head of creative director type thing. And I learned like really how to hone my craft. Yeah. Because working in that more corporate kind of world, it does kind of, it's quite rigorous. You really learn to be disciplined. There's a lot there, high stakes, there's big budgets, big teams of people. So you learn to cope with pressure, and you have to achieve, every single job that I do, I try to make my best work. Yeah, of course. I try to learn something new. I try to develop my skills. Yeah. So doing that for 10 years was really, really useful for me to learn, photography, videography, web design, graphic design, and really hone that craft. And now what I feel like I'm doing is I'm taking all of that experience that I've learned and I'm putting it into a new project that I want to do. Yeah, so going on for this new project, obviously you started working on Royal and Derngate, and when I remember you talking to me about this when you first started and you did Act 1, was it just an orange carton? Was it called? This is a carton of orange. Yeah, this is it. That's it. Yeah. And I remember like coming to see it, and it was amazing, like brilliant monologue. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. And now you like started this like Mixed Network Northants, which is like I've attended one of the workshops that you've done recently. Yeah. And was a success, I'd want to say, from my end. So I really, really enjoyed it. It was great. Mixed Network Northants it's kind of off the back of like, I don't know, maybe I should talk a little bit about orange juice and I'd start off by talking about the orange juice, and then because obviously I knew there was Act 2 that was supposed to come out, but I don't know if you've got around to it yet, or well, it's still in development. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah. Like, with a lot of theatrical projects or theatre or fine arts orientated projects, they can be a long process. Yeah. Like, so I guess how it all came around, and I've got to talk about Erica a little bit here. Of course, is that I started doing some masterclasses for Royal and Derngate over lockdown, which were centered around like cameras and like lighting and stuff, and how to do that sort of thing on a budget at home. Because a lot of theatre companies weren't able to work in theatres anymore. Yeah. So essentially what they had to do was convert it to doing stuff online, Zoom. Yeah. And especially, smaller theatre companies, and even bigger ones, their buildings were closed. Yeah, of course. So there wasn't much they could do. So, I was brought in to kind of go, here's how you do a basic lighting setup. Here's how you do your camera. Here's how you get good audio, that sort of thing, on these online masterclasses. Yeah. And they were brilliant. Like, I had so much fun doing it. And I realised like the different atmosphere and the different experience of working in the arts as opposed to working in the corporate world. Like, don't get me wrong, I've met some wonderful people in the corporate world as well, and I've had some amazing experiences, a lot of fun. But the primary function is to make money. Yeah, of course. The primary function is to sell a product. Yeah. And you can't escape that. No. That's just what it is. That's because like you say, money makes the world go round, and and runs a business. So like sometimes they'll disguise it as like there's a deeper meaning. Yeah. And stuff, and you're like, okay, but you wouldn't be doing this if you weren't trying to sell this product, right? You'd be doing something else. Yeah. You know what the end goal is to make money. Yeah. Otherwise, what are we doing? Yeah, exactly. So I found that the art world was just being around people that were more concerned with ideas, more concerned with creativity in a broad sense, and sharing ideas. I've just found it very interesting and refreshing, and spending 10 years, longer, 12 years actually, at the in one area, I was ready for a bit of a shift into another area, and I was still doing freelance work. In the other with Amplitude as well, but I was starting to split my time more weighted towards working in the arts. Yeah. So I did these workshops. And then one thing led to another, and I met a lot of artists and a lot of people, and, you know, they all need photographers, they need graphic designers and that kind of thing. So I found myself spending a lot of time with those people. Then Erica, who I met through friends a few years before that.
Okay,
she got me onto the mentorship program, which was essentially, there was a mentorship program at Royal and Derngate called the Generate program. Yeah. And it's when a group of artists are taken on board and provided support for their work. Now, originally, I was going to do this as a kind of like a projection artist, sort of set design kind of perspective. And then Erica got hold of some writing that I'd done.
Oh,
and
okay.
And like, I'd been writing for years. In the background. I just loved doing it. It was just interesting. She got hold of it and she was like, no, you're going to turn this into a script and you're going to perform it at GenFest.
Wow, okay. Nice.
And I was just like...
It's like pressure's on.
But it actually came from a conversation we were having where I was talking about my family and my experiences. And I kind of analogized human connectivity through a carton of orange juice. Yeah. So I was looking at, look, if you just take this simple object... to make this, right, there were farmers, graphic designers, people invented the barcode, people had to figure out the nutritional content, the plastic in the lid, cardboard, all of these elements to make just a simple object, right? Now, if you take that and turn that to every experience we have, the level of interconnectivity between each of us is unthinkable. It's incredible. Like, this microphone, we didn't make that.
No, exactly. No, exactly. Yeah.
Like, nothing that we interact with is really our sole responsibility. Yeah. We kind of create this illusion that because you walk into a shop and tap a bit of card on a thing, and you take that, that's mine now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's mine. No, you didn't.
No,
it's not yours. It never was.
Because you pay for it, it's like owner of possession and stuff like that. Yeah. Actually,
it's inescapable how much we rely on each other. And unfortunately, the truth of that is that we rely on the exploitation for a lot of people to get some of the things that we have. Yeah. And that's an unfortunate, hard truth to face. Yeah. So orange juice is basically writing that I've done which highlights that interconnectivity, but also looks at identity, culture, and history, and language. Okay. And how all of these things kind of interweave and connect to form a kind of sense of who we are. So, like, Erica took this right, and she was like, "No, you're going to perform this." I was like, "What do you mean I'm going to perform it? I'm not a performer." But then, yes, man, took over. Of course I can do that. Yeah, great.
I'm going to do
it. Yeah. And then, like, I think I'd written most of the content, but I had to turn it into a script, learn the lines, rehearse, perform it, all within the space of about a month.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure because I studied drama as well, and like doing that in a month, like even learning a monologue is like,
it was
my God. Like,
it was the single most important transformative experience of my entire creative career. Yeah. And the other thing I love about theatre is it involves all of the things that I like to do together. Yeah. And there's no other creative discipline that does that to me. You know, it's music, it's graphic design, photography, film, painting. Every single creative discipline is involved in theatre, and I love it for that. It's pure magic.
Of course.
So about a month later, I found myself backstage on the Royal stage at Royal and Derngate, which was just such a surreal experience. Like, I was there waiting, like, you know, they were like, This is your 5-minute call. Yeah. No, in 5 minutes I'm going to be walking out to a crowd of nearly 200 people.
Yeah, because I remember being on the front row as well and seeing you.
Yeah. Do you know what? Actually, seeing you guys there was really grounding.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was really good. Like, 'cause it was just, you know, the people on the front row, seeing those familiar people and knowing that I was in a room that was filled with people that had my back.
Yeah, of course.
Wanted to support me. So it was, you know, it wasn't, for context, it wasn't the finished performance. It was a sharing and a testing of the script. Okay, yeah. Which I'm still in the process of developing into the show.
Because like even me and Joe walked out and we're like, that was fucking sick. I've been big into theatre anyway, and Joe was like, I I love theatre, but I've never seen anything like that, and I thought it was really great. Cool, and man. You did a really good job of it.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But yeah, like the whole concept of it is like really interesting as well. And like we were just like going on a massive rant about it at one point, and we're just like, we needed to do a podcast about it. I can't lie to you, but it was good. But yeah.
So it's. I want to mention that me and Erica as well. We started off working together as professionals.
Yeah.
But that turned into a romance. And we're together.
Now you're together. That's so sweet.
So, But
it's nice.
I think, I guess I just want to acknowledge as well that when I met Erica, the creative, like, when we talked about creativity and about art and about work, like something magic was happening. Like I've never met anybody that's inspired me as much as she has. Through that process, and it's really good to have that person in your life that you can talk about stuff. And
absolutely, and it's nice to fall in love with someone that like you can just go off something. Like you could have like another goal, and they'll be like, okay, I'll help you get on with that. We have these moments where both of our brains start working at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And we it's start like having ideas. It's like I like to think mine and Joe's relationship is like that.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing.
Honestly, mate. Honestly, we're gonna get married soon, so
you two should definitely.
Oh man, but no. And now, like, obviously, from that, you've like started the Mixed Network Northants, which is really great.
Mixed Network Northants, I guess.
If you want to delve into it a little bit more, like,
I guess explaining kind of what it is in relation to the show. So at the end of the show, I'd done this performance, and I wanted to get feedback from people in the audience.
Right. Yeah.
So the audience was a mixture of like friends, family, but also industry professionals, people that had been invited that I wanted to give me advice on how to move it forward. I think there was about 200, under 200 people maybe. I'm not sure about that, but it was a lot. And then we had, I think, about just under 100 people watching online on a live stream as well.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So a lot of the feedback that I got from that session, and my favourite bit of it was when I popped myself on the edge of the stage with Erica next to me, and we just had a chinwag with the crowd. Because the conversation was really good. People were curious, they wanted to know more, they were interested in the idea of mixed race identity and identity generally. And I thought, actually, this is the best part, this conversation.
Absolutely.
And then it was Erica that gave me the idea of like, well, why don't you make that part of the wraparound where you have this post-show conversation where you talk to everybody about these ideas. And then also, when the show is produced, when it's its final thing, that'll be part of the show where we actually have that conversation.
Okay.
So Mixed Network Northants is, there was one person that came, and I wish that I'd got their email address because I haven't been in contact with them. And they basically expressed, I can't remember exactly, but the opinion of, I didn't realise that other people felt this way. About their heritage and about their identity. And they came on their own. They're not somebody that I knew. They just saw the Facebook announcement. And I kind of thought, like, that's really, really, really important. Really powerful, because I didn't realise that other people felt the way that I did growing up. And this is mostly related to being mixed race. And the kind of challenges that that come about because of that. So Mixed Network Northants is a group that is specifically set up to discuss mixed race identity and culture, the unique challenges that you face, and also the things that you celebrate as part of having that identity. And there's a monthly session. It's open to anybody that has a vested interest in that identity. So it's not necessarily, Erica comes along with me, and she is a mixed race, but we're in a mixed partnership.
And it's a level. There's like a level of support between you and Erica, because essentially you're in it together now. You know what I mean? 100%. So
and like my parents, for example, their experience of having a mixed relationship it had its own challenges as well. So I want to get as many people together, partly to just have a conversation, but I'll use those conversations to inspire my work. But also just because I want as many people as possible to have that feeling of I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That it isn't just me.
Absolutely.
Because, honestly, that sense of isolation, and I think a lot of mixed race people feel it because they're kind of, you don't belong here, you don't belong there.
Yeah.
I want to kind of erode that sense of isolation in as many people as possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
And give them that sense of, actually, I belong here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, I think what I like about your workshop is that it's like open to anyone invested. See, that's great. It's not, no, you have to be mixed race in order to join it.
I don't
like,
want to put up barriers.
No, exactly. And I think that's, as soon as you do that, that's where you go wrong. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, because it's even like, I even look back at like my mum's experience. So my mum's fully English and my dad's half Italian. And like, obviously with Erica, like she's embraced your culture and like so forth. And I think my mum is the most bravest person ever to embrace like my dad's side of the family, to the point where she's always considered as a Macchiarelli. Like even like, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you have your side of the family and like you kind of gel with them. But like my mum's always molded herself really well with my dad's side. And it's really sweet. And like, she's always been willing to learn. And there are certain few people that are willing to learn that. And I think like what you're doing is like massively impactful, because people do need to be educated, but not like, look, I'm going to sit you down and like tell you what's what. And then that's it. But no, like, I think it's great, and it does need to be talked about a lot. So
for me, it's like, because you also run the risk of, you know, a lot of mixed race people, especially if they present as dark skinned, or they present as other. There's a lot of trauma there. There's a lot of challenges there.
Absolutely,
there might have been some really challenging experiences growing up. But I also want to talk about the beautiful things and the good things, especially, you know, food.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
When you get a culture blending like that, you get the best music, you get the best food. It always comes from that blending of ideas.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to look at like 70s New York, right? A melting pot of different cultures. And we got hip hop.
Yeah.
We got punk music and we got dance music.
Yeah.
From like one small area in New York. And that's because of a blending of cultures and ideas.
Yeah.
So it's irrefutable that that's a positive thing.
Absolutely.
But further to that, it's so my parents met in South Africa.
Yeah.
Right. In the 60s, which was probably the most racially divided place on the planet and that there ever has been. They would rank people very specifically by race, by how much value they had based on that. Yeah, it was.
That's like really crucial. That is. It's like
It's the level of damage that can do to the psyche of an entire group of people is
because essentially you put people in districts at that point. You know what I mean?
That's what they did.
Yeah,
that's exactly like District 9, the film.
Yeah,
that's called District 9 because there was a District 9.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
My mum, like when she watched that film, she was like, "I remember that's what they did."
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh yeah. Honestly, if you're a South African watching that film, it's way more interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, two people who come from different areas, different races, falling in love and having a relationship and having a family is the complete antithesis of that racism and that hate. It's the complete opposite of it. It's something intensely beautiful that it can exist even amongst such awful political polarization and social destruction, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, being mixed race, it's not just about understanding the challenges, it's about understanding the beauty of standing against that adversity.
Yeah, of course.
As well. At least that's what it symbolizes.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, like you say, that's really important. And love comes under like a lot of things. And like you say, like there is more of a new generation of like kids now that are mixed race, and like they are going to struggle with this. Do you know what I mean? Like we're not fully white, we're not fully African, or like, do you know what I mean? Like we are like, essentially I want to say we're evolving. Because we are evolving. Like, we're evolving in culture.
Everything always changes.
Everything always changes. We're evolving in culture. We're evolving, like... And I think my mum, like, going back to my mum, like, she's evolved in herself as this fully white woman. And, like, she can cook 10 times better than my dad. And she's, like, British. You know what I mean? Like, get a British person to cook an Italian dish. It's like, she can do it. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think that's, like... I think that's where we kind of like, that's where I'd say like the evolution has come into place, and like now it's been passed down to me and stuff like that. I think that's great what you're doing. And obviously like I'm really interested in like obviously with yours and Erica's like relationship, because it's a interracial like relationship. Like, is there anything like do you face any problems or anything like that in that sense?
Yeah. I noticed I've had a few racist things thrown at me a couple of times in a pub. You get a vibe sometimes when you walk into a place, like,
and a pub especially, because like alcohol and like
people are pissed and they're angry about something else.
It's like, especially when the football game's on, you're just like, oh, you fucking wanker.
But like weirdly, I don't want to paint a picture that I don't feel welcome in this town, because I do. And like, I love Northampton so much. Like, this is my home, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, those people are the outsiders. What's been happening is I've been getting a lot more comments thrown at me, but also Erica's had a few people approach her and say some nasty stuff. And kind of like on the mask of, are you okay? You know what I mean? Like, are you all right with them?
Oh,
that kind of thing. Yeah, and like she at first, she just didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like, what are these guys talking about? And then the sad thing as well is that she came over to me and my brother, and we spoke about it, and she was very angry, right? And I said, like, look, if we went over there and confronted them, it would turn to violence. And this situation happens. It will happen sometimes. And the best, you know, I'm not going to persuade them of anything. I'm not going to change their mind about anything. We're drunk. It's a Friday night. Let's just drop it. We'll go somewhere else and let it be. There's, you know, the sensible part of me wanted to do that.
Of course,
But I think for Erica, she found it very challenging because it was just a surprise to her. Like, but me and Dom, we were like, yeah, this is one of those pubs. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, this is one of those pubs where you just get a vibe. Walk in, you get a vibe. You know people are looking at you, and you know they're wary of you.
Because you know, you feel like you're the odd one out to everyone else. And I understand that completely. Like, I get it.
And it's easy to think as well, like, maybe I'm imagining it, maybe I'm being hypersensitive, and maybe I'm looking for these things where they don't, like they don't exist. However, I go into some places and I get no trace of that whatsoever.
Because see, my experience was like I said, like my experience was more in school. So as soon as like your name was called out on the register, obviously I have the most funkiest surname ever.
It's a great surname.
Thank you. Joe, when I first met Joe, he was like, you've got such a great surname.
It's so
I love
cool.
it. I was like, thank you. But like, obviously, like as soon as the teacher tries to pronounce obviously like you're going to mispronounce it. It's common, you know what I mean? And then like everyone looks at you like, oh, like, I'm like quarter Italian, thanks. Like, it's great. But like, and you do feel like that's the case, and like you grow up with it and you're going to get the looks. But I think, do you feel like with what you're doing, do you think it will, like this sense of like racism and this like mixed culture that we're like entering, do you think it's going to stop at some point? Or do you feel like it will constantly carry on because like,
you never run out of pricks.
No, exactly. Well, exactly. You need, exactly.
Like, I think one of the you can't really change. You can't really change the fact that sometimes people are prejudiced, and that prejudice can turn into hatred and anger. I think that's something that we've seen in humanity from the very beginning. However, you do get shifts in culture where we find that racism acceptable, or we say it isn't acceptable. And that can massively, massively sway the way that people behave and also what they believe. Right?
Absolutely.
Essentially, people can be quite easily led. So if you as a leader create a culture where we normalize this segregation and racism and hatred like they did in South Africa, then people are going to lean further into those negative traits that they have that are suspicious and mean and nasty.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas if you create a culture that is more compassionate and more understanding and doesn't think that these things are acceptable, then on the whole, people are going to be more compassionate and be more accepting of others.
Right, yeah.
It all comes down to what you decide to value as a society.
Yeah.
What you decide are virtues in a society.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So if we take South Africa, for example, as an extreme, right? They basically painted being as white as possible as virtuous. Yeah. As the kind of highest virtue that you can have, right? Because you were top of the ladder, you were top of the hierarchy. And the darker you were, and the more, literally the darker you were, the lower down the ladder you were. Mm-hmm. So that's deliberately controlling and orchestrating what a society sees as virtuous. Mm. Right? And it had a terrible effect on people where they started to believe that it was real, that it was true. Mm. Right? You ask a lot of people that lived in those conditions. Well, I think people at every level in that society started to believe that was real. It wasn't just a construct. Mm-hmm. So if it's possible to do it that way, to create such a terrible divide and such terrible standards or beliefs, then it's possible the other way as well. And this is what I find fascinating about people is we're almost like we're capable of such extremes as a society. Yeah. We've seen examples of people being very, very kind and egalitarian and caring, and then we've seen examples of people being turned into monsters. Sometimes the same people. Yeah. That's okay. The thing. Yeah, Sometimes the same people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think it's entirely possible for us to diminish kind of racism and those experiences to the point where they're almost non-existent.
Yeah. You know? Okay.
You're never going to get rid of those feelings completely.
No.
But I think you can really seriously diminish them. And I think conversations and communities are the answer.
Yeah, and I think, because it is down to educating the new generation, of course. And obviously, growing up, my mum and dad always told me not to be like this, not to be like that. And I think, your parents have a massive influence on how you're educated and stuff, hugely. And yeah, I feel like there is a lot of kids that are, they do grow up with, the old attitude that their parents give them, which is essentially he's this kind of person because of this and this, and he don't belong here and stuff like that. And I feel like you would get that sometimes. But the thing is, even if you had things like what you're doing here and educating the new generation, and slowly in time, then something might stop.
Yeah, but you've hit on a really important point as well. Is that it takes a very long time.
Yeah.
You know? You think in South Africa, just because of the end of apartheid, that everything was fine all of a sudden. Yeah. That was a weird thing with Mandela's sort of the period of time he was in power, let's say. Is I think there was a sense that everybody expected everything to just be okay now. Mm-hmm. But you're talking generations of trauma.
Exactly.
And generations of oppression and racism and stuff. Yeah. And that doesn't get undone overnight.
No, and I feel like people there is a massive thing where people kind of think, oh yeah, racism should just stop with a click of the finger. No. But it's not. You're still going to think about it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's always going to be there, I think. Hopefully at some point new generations come along and then it's not spoken about as often. I think that's kind of the way you need to push it.
One day to fast track some of these changes is by having the right leaders.
Yeah,
obviously, because we will follow a leader. Yeah, essentially, even ones that we don't necessarily agree with on everything. There's still the power of that person being in that position. It will influence us. Yeah, right. So you can do some things in a single generation, but really you need multiple generations. Going through a long period of time in order to get that change happening in a more profound way. Yeah. I've got a really interesting... How are we doing for time? Am I going
what are we saying? 25. Hour 25. Oh,
wow.
We'll give it another 5 minutes. Okay. Also, yeah. But we're doing all right. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think the takeaway is that you've got to acknowledge that when you're trying to bring about a positive change, you might not be recognised, or you might not be the thing that gets to witness that come to fruition. Yeah. But you might be able to get to start something. Everybody has this problem, and you see this in any kind of grassroots radical movement.
Yeah.
People want to be the thing that brought the change.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And they get frustrated when they don't see that change and when they don't get recognition for it.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's because we want recognition for, everybody wants to be the hero of their own story.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think the most important, meaningful change, you don't even witness it. It happens so slowly.
Okay. Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
You just got to keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good way to end it as well. But like, have you got anything like, I want to finalize anything you got coming up, like yourself, like with this new project of yours?
What have I got coming up?
Yeah.
Mixed Network Northants is the main thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely the focus that I'm on at the moment. I mean, it's the way that I work is I've got a million things.
Yeah.
I talk about the workshop I was at last night.
Yeah.
The workshop leader said something brilliant, which is because of their neurospicy mix.
Yeah.
They go on a lot of side quests.
Nice.
Which is fantastic.
I just love it.
Yeah. So like, I guess I've got 3 main quests at the moment.
Nice.
And that is my work with Roland Derngate as an artist.
Yeah.
My teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then also my work with One Brown Bear.
Okay.
Providing kind of digital content solutions. They're my 3 main quests at the moment. Okay. But then I've got a million side quests.
Yeah, nice.
And, I love it because it keeps things interesting, keeps things diverse. Mm-hmm. And really, I'm still that same kid that was led by curiosity. Yeah. I think that's the big driver for me creatively is that I'm intensely curious about everything.
And that's a very good trait to have, I think. And like, I think it makes you into a much better person as well. Like curiosity and how you use that ability. I think that's great.
And try and encourage it in other people.
Yeah, well. Absolutely.
Like there's so much cool stuff out there to get into. You just need to find it.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Should we end it there? Is there any contact details or anything like how can people reach you and stuff like that?
Yeah. So my email address is chris@onebrownbear.co.uk, and that's the word one, not the number.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
And that's probably the best place to get hold of me.
Okay.
For everything. That's the one I check the most.
Yeah. And when's your next networking event that you've got coming up?
The next session is it's the second Tuesday of every month, and I believe this one will be the 12th. Is the next date. I've got to check that.
Yeah. And whereabouts is it? Like,
it's at Saints Cafe.
Brilliant.
In town on St Giles Street.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, it's been great talking to you.
And
thank you for being my first guest, as a host, because I'm shitting myself. Not even beforehand, I was like, oh, what do I ask him?
It's been really nice.
It's been really great. So,
yeah.
And it's always good to catch up with you all the time. So, I should try and do it more often as well. So, but yeah, of course.
I should, if I'm invited back, I shall return.